The world for Arthur Penhaligon in the autumn of 1934 was a cramped, grayscale photograph. It smelled of coal dust and damp wool and was perpetually shadowed by the towering brick tenements of New York's Lower East Side. At 22, his life was a relentless, grinding routine. Rise before the sun, a meager breakfast of stale bread and weak tea, and the long walk to the cacophony of the Brooklyn shipyards. His job was as gray as his world. He was a tallyman. For 10 hours a day, he stood on the splintered docks, a clipboard in his chapped hands, counting crates, sacks, and barrels. His mind, a tool he felt was rusting from disuse, was occupied only with numbers that meant nothing to him. They were just figures on a page, representing a wealth that flowed past him but never touched him. His starting point wasn't zero, it was negative. His father had left the family with a mountain of debt accrued from foolish ventures and a taste for cheap gin. His mother, a ghost with weary eyes, had worked her fingers to the bone as a seamstress until she faded from the world 2 years prior. Arthur was left with the debt, a one-room apartment that was cold in the winter and suffocating in the summer, and a profound, gnawing emptiness. He had no connections, no specialized skills, and a deep-seated belief that he was destined to be a spectator in the grand theater of life. His evenings were spent poring over the sensationalist pages of pulp magazines, their stories of daring entrepreneurs and instant millionaires a stark, painful contrast to his own reality. He saved, of course. Every spare penny was squirreled away in a loose floorboard beneath his bed. He saw it as his only shield against the world, a pathetic little wall of coins and crumpled bills. The idea of growing money was as foreign to him as the language spoken by the sailors on the docks. The poor man's mindset, the one he inherited, was about one thing: survival through scarcity. One rainy Tuesday, the turning point arrived, not with a trumpet's call, but with a conspiratorial whisper in a dimly lit pub. His name was Silas, a fast-talking checker from another pier with a slick smile and eyes that never quite met yours. "Listen, Artie." Silas leaned in, his breath smelling of whiskey. "I've got a tip. A sure thing. A new company. Radio technology. It's the future. The stock is dirt cheap now, but in 6 months, it'll be hitting the stratosphere." Hope, that dangerous and beautiful drug, surged through Arthur's veins. This was it. This was the shortcut he'd been reading about. The secret ladder out of the pit. He wasn't buying a stock, he was buying a new life. "How much do you need?" Arthur asked, his voice barely a whisper. "As much as you can get your hands on." Silas grinned. "Fortune favors the bold, my friend." That night, Arthur pried up the loose floorboard. His entire savings, the fruit of 2 years of relentless, soul-crushing frugality, amounted to $112. It was a fortune to him. With trembling hands, he handed it all over to Silas the next day in exchange for a crisp, official-looking stock certificate. For a week, Arthur walked on air. He imagined himself in a fine suit, leaving the grimy docks behind forever. He'd buy a small house. Maybe even find a girl who would see him as more than just a tallyman. The crash came a week later. A small article, buried in the back pages of the newspaper, announced an investigation into a fraudulent stock scheme. The pioneering radio company, was nothing more than a post office box and a fictitious name. Silas was gone. The certificate was worthless paper. The $112, his shield against the world, had vanished. But it was more than the money. His hope, his fragile dream of a different life, had been shattered. He stood on the docks the next day, the clipboard feeling heavier than ever. And the numbers seemed to mock him. He hadn't just lost his money, he had been proven a fool. He had started at a negative and, through his own ignorance and desperation, had managed to dig himself even deeper into the hole. That night, in the silence of his cold room, Arthur Penhaligon didn't just feel poor, he felt worthless. That was his true rock bottom. For weeks, despair was his only companion. But one day, while staring at his own haggard reflection in a shop window, a different feeling began to stir: anger. Not at Silas, not at the world, but at himself. He was angry at his own ignorance. Why did he know how to count another man's goods but not how to manage his own money? Why did he believe in a sure thing from a man he barely knew? He realized his poverty wasn't just in his pocket, it was in his mind. This ember of anger sparked a new kind of resolve. He wasn't going to look for another shortcut. He was going to build a ladder, rung by painful rung. His quest for knowledge began at the public library, a vast, hushed sanctuary he had never before appreciated. He started not with books on getting rich, but with the basics: economics, accounting, and business biographies. He read about men who built empires not through luck, but through discipline, understanding of value, and relentless self-improvement. During his search, he stumbled upon a name in the business section of the newspaper: Alistair Finch. An accountant with a small, unpretentious office a few blocks from the docks. The article praised Mr. Finch not for his wealth, but for his wisdom in helping small businesses navigate the treacherous post-Depression economy. Summoning a courage he didn't know he possessed, Arthur made an appointment. He expected to be turned away, but a kindly, elderly man with spectacles perched on his nose and a calm, patient demeanor welcomed him in. Arthur, ashamed but determined, told him everything: the debt, the job, the scam, the crushing feeling of worthlessness. He didn't ask for money. He asked for something far more valuable. "I want to learn, Mr. Finch. I don't want to be a fool with money ever again. I'll sweep your floors, run your errands, anything. Just teach me what you know." Mr. Finch listened without judgment. When Arthur finished, the old man didn't offer pity. He offered a tool. He slid a thick, green-bound ledger across his polished desk. "This," Mr. Finch said softly, "is the most powerful tool in the world. It's not just for businesses, my boy. It's for life. Most people think an accountant's job is to count money. It's not. It's to tell the truth with numbers." He opened the ledger. "We are going to start your own ledger. 2 sides, liabilities and assets." Under liabilities, Arthur wrote down his father's debt. He then listed things Mr. Finch pointed out: lack of financial knowledge, no valuable skills, limited network. The assets column was painfully short. A steady job, however modest. Mr. Finch dictated: youth, good health, and now, he added with a small smile, a desire to learn. That, Arthur, is the most valuable asset of all. This was Arthur's first great lesson. The rich and poor mindsets view assets and liabilities differently. The poor man only saw his empty wallet. The rich man, Mr. Finch taught, saw his own potential and knowledge as his primary assets. Mr. Finch agreed to mentor him. Every Saturday, for 1 hour, Arthur would work for Mr. Finch, organizing files and running errands. In return, Mr. Finch would teach him the principles of accounting and finance. Your first investment will not be in the stock market, Mr. Finch declared one Saturday. You lost your money because you had no value to offer the world except your time at the docks. We must increase your value. You must invest in yourself. Arthur was confused. But I have no money to invest. Investment is not always about money. It's about the allocation of resources. Your primary resource right now is time. Mr. Finch pointed to a flyer for evening classes at a local community hall. Public speaking and elocution. 8 weeks. 3 evenings a week. Arthur balked. Public speaking? Me? I'm a tallyman. Who would I speak to? You will speak to future employers, future clients, future partners, Mr. Finch said firmly. You cannot sell a good idea if you cannot communicate it. Your ideas are worthless if they are trapped in your head. This is your first and most important investment. It was terrifying. The first class was an agony of sweaty palms and a cracking voice. But he persisted. He practiced in his small room, reciting newspaper articles to the empty chairs. Slowly, miraculously, something shifted. He learned to organize his thoughts, to speak clearly and with conviction. He was no longer Arthur the mumbling tallyman, he was becoming Arthur Penhaligon. A man who could articulate his thoughts. This was his second lesson. Investing in yourself is the only investment that guarantees a return. Back at the docks, a change was noticed. When a dispute arose over a shipment manifest, Arthur, who normally would have shrunk into the background, stepped forward. He clearly and calmly explained the discrepancy he had noticed, articulating the issue in a way that both the foreman and the shipping agent could understand. The foreman, a gruff man named Henderson, looked at him with a new, grudging respect. Meanwhile, his Saturdays with Mr. Finch continued. He learned to read a balance sheet, to understand profit and loss, and most importantly, the concept of cash flow. He applied these principles to his own life. His ledger was no longer just a record of his misery, it was a battle plan. He tracked every penny, not to hoard it, but to direct it. He allocated a small portion of his meager salary to books. He saw that the few dollars spent on a book about business management was not an expense, but an asset. This was the third lesson. Don't just save blindly. Allocate your capital, your money, time, and energy, to things that increase your personal value. 6 months after he first walked into Mr. Finch's office, an opportunity arose. An accounting clerk position opened up in the shipyard's main office. It was an indoor job, a desk job, a world away from the docks. The old Arthur would never have dared. But the new Arthur, armed with his speaking skills and his burgeoning knowledge of accounting, wrote a formal application. He walked into the interview with Mr. Henderson and, for the first time in his life, looked his boss in the eye and clearly stated his case, explaining how his on-the-docks experience combined with his new knowledge could benefit the company. He got the job. The pay was only marginally better. But the victory was monumental. He had left the negative territory. He was at zero. And the whole world of positive numbers lay ahead of him. His work was now about analyzing the very numbers he used to mindlessly count. He excelled. He found inefficiencies, suggested improvements, and saved the company money. He started a small side business. Using the principles Mr. Finch taught him, he spent his evenings and weekends helping local shopkeepers, the baker, the tailor, the grocer, organize their books for a small fee. He wasn't just doing their accounting, he was teaching them to understand their own businesses. Just as Mr. Finch had taught him, he was building relationships, creating a network. This was the fourth lesson: use your time, money, and relationships as interconnected tools for growth. His time invested in learning created the skill, money, to help others, which built relationships, which in turn brought more opportunities. He finally paid off his father's debt. The day he made the final payment, he wrote it in his ledger and drew a thick, satisfying line through it. He was finally, truly, at zero. But life is not a simple, linear progression. Just as Arthur began to build a solid foundation, a new and more formidable challenge appeared. The company he worked for lost a major shipping contract, and whispers of layoffs spread through the office. His old foreman, Henderson, now a mid-level manager, saw Arthur's rapid rise and growing influence with the small business community as a threat. Henderson began to undermine him, questioning his work in meetings, losing his reports, and sowing seeds of doubt with senior management. Simultaneously, the baker, one of Arthur's first and largest clients, went bankrupt, a casualty of the harsh economic climate. It was a double blow, threatening both his main income and his burgeoning side business. The old fear, the ghost of the man who lost everything to a scam, began to creep back. He went to see Mr. Finch, his heart heavy. He laid out the situation, the professional jealousy, the financial setback. "Perhaps I was foolish to think I could escape my lot," Arthur said, the old despair clouding his voice. Mr. Finch looked at him over his spectacles. "What does your ledger tell you, Arthur?" Arthur was taken aback. "It tells me my income is about to decrease significantly." "Look again," the old man urged. "Look at your assets, not the numbers, the words." Arthur opened his ledger. Under assets, he saw the entries he had made over the past year: public speaking skills, knowledge of advanced accounting, strong relationships with 10 local business owners, reputation for honesty and hard work. He looked up, a dawning realization in his eyes. His greatest assets weren't on his balance sheet. Mr. Finch smiled. "Henderson can threaten your job. A bankruptcy can cost you a client. But can they take away your skills? Can they erase your reputation? Can they destroy the trust you have built? Your foundation, my boy, is not your job. It is you." A new fire lit within Arthur. He wasn't going to fight Henderson on his turf. He was going to make himself too valuable to be dismissed. He called a meeting with his remaining clients. He didn't just present their books, he presented a plan. He showed them how they could pool their resources to buy supplies in bulk, how they could cross-promote each other's businesses, He used his speaking skills to forge an alliance among them, turning them from individual, struggling shopkeepers into a cooperative force. His actions didn't go unnoticed. The owner of the shipyard, a man who rarely ventured down from his penthouse office, heard about the young clerk who was helping the local community organize itself. He saw the initiative, the understanding of finance that went beyond mere bookkeeping. He called Arthur into his office, bypassing Henderson completely. He didn't offer him a promotion. He offered him a partnership. He wanted Arthur to head a new division, a consulting arm to help the shipyard's smaller clients become more efficient and financially stable, making them better, more reliable customers in the long run. Arthur accepted. He resigned from his clerk position, leaving Henderson to his petty office politics. He had not just overcome the challenge, he had transcended it. Years passed. Arthur Penhaligon became a name synonymous with integrity and sharp financial acumen. He never became a flashy millionaire, but he built a life of comfort, purpose, and profound wealth, a wealth measured not just in dollars, but in the businesses he had saved, the people he had empowered, and the respect he had earned. He married a wonderful woman, had 2 children, and lived in a modest but beautiful house with a large garden. One sunny afternoon, a young man, barely out of his teens, with threadbare clothes and nervous eyes, knocked on his office door. He had a story of a foolish investment, of lost savings, of feeling worthless. Arthur listened patiently, just as Mr. Finch had listened to him all those years ago. When the young man was finished, Arthur smiled, opened a drawer in his large oak desk, and took out a fresh, green-bound ledger. "This," he began, his voice filled with a deep, calm authority, "is the most powerful tool in the world. Let's start with your assets." As he looked at the hopeful, determined face of the young man, Arthur thought of his own ledger, the original one, which he kept in a safe at home. It was no longer a book of accounts. It was the story of his life, a testament to the journey from a negative, from a place of despair, to a life built not on luck or shortcuts, but on the unwavering belief that the greatest investment you can ever make is the one you make in yourself. Lessons from the ledger. This story of Arthur Penhaligon is a narrative vessel for timeless principles of financial and personal growth. For anyone feeling lost or starting from a disadvantage, here are the core lessons to carry with you. The rich mindset versus the poor mindset. The core difference isn't about greed, it's about perspective. The poor mindset, born of scarcity, focuses on saving pennies and fears loss above all else. It leads to hoarding resources and being paralyzed by fear. The rich mindset, born of abundance, focuses on creating value and sees opportunity. It asks not, "How can I save more?" but, "How can I earn more?" and, "How can I grow what I have?" Arthur's shift from hiding money under a floorboard to using it to buy books is the embodiment of this change. Investing in yourself is the greatest ROI. The stock market can crash. Businesses can fail, but the skills and knowledge you acquire become a permanent part of who you are. Arthur's most profitable investment wasn't a stock, it was a public speaking class. It cost him time and a little money, but it paid dividends for the rest of his life by increasing his fundamental value as a person and professional. Before you look for external investments, Look inward. What skill can you learn? What knowledge can you acquire that will make you more valuable to the world? Don't just save. Increase your value. Saving is crucial. But it's a defensive strategy. Frugality alone will never make you wealthy, it will only make you a better funded poor person. The goal is not to live as cheaply as possible, but to increase your earning potential so that your savings become a tool for investment, not just a shield against disaster. Arthur stopped saving blindly and started directing his resources toward his own growth. This is the path to true financial strength. The Trinity of Growth: money, time, and relationships. These three resources are interconnected and should be managed with purpose. Arthur used his time to gain knowledge, a skill. He then used that skill to earn money and help others. This process of helping others built valuable relationships and a strong reputation, which in turn brought him greater opportunities. Don't view these as separate buckets. How can you use your time to increase your skills? How can you use your money to buy back time or gain more knowledge? How can you leverage your relationships for growth and offer value in return? Master the interplay between these three assets, and you will build a foundation that no single setback can destroy.